Hello and welcome to The Cutting Room, a movie show by All the Right Movies. We're here from downtown. My name is Luke, and with me are Matt.
Hello.
And Westy.
Hello.
This is part 2 of our episode on Glengarry, Glen, where we're talking about the incredible writing and the cast. You can get the other parts here. First up, we're covering the writing. Okay, the writing on Glengarry, Glen, the legendary David Mamet, a playwright, a director, screenwriter, the man has done it all. Probably most famous in the movie biz for writing screenplays for Lou Metz, The Verdict in 82, and from 87, The Untouchables. A big favourite of yours, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mamet's screenplay for Glengarry Glen Ross was based on his 1993 Pulitzer Prize-winning play of the same name. A profane piece of writing, the actors jokingly refer to it as Death of a Fucking Salesman. Westy, what do you think of Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross speech?
Well, finally I can be positive in this episode, because I think this is where...
Hallelujah,
fucking Louie. Yeah, we are. Yeah. It's where... It's really where it shines. I mean, it's just... It is immaculate. It makes such a small idea. And that was one thing that put me off. I was like, it's almost too small for the actors. But the grandeur that they bring to it and the grandeur that they bring to this dialogue really works for me. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, and the way that the simple story just spins and you don't really see the twist coming but you do, but you don't. Mm-hmm. And the more you watch it, you kind of get ideas. And the way that, I think the way that this is cast is brilliant, because you could put any of these guys in any of these roles, really. You could switch them around and it would really work. You could put Pacino in Baldwin's role and Baldwin in Pacino's role. Yeah. And it would be incredible. No doubt. It would still work, but I think that's down to the writing. I don't think that's down to the direction. I think that's my problem with this film, is the direction. I just feel it's quite lazy and doesn't get that point across. But, I mean, Jesus Christ, you could film this script on a phone and it would be fucking amazing. That's how good the writing is. But you can tell it's a play. All that was added to this is red and blue lights and a little bit of moisture. Do you know what I mean? But that's what I mean.
To me.
Very good, Matt. Very good.
Very good. Yeah, sounds terrifying. It's definitely the best thing about the film. I think it's razor sharp. The dialogue's amazing. The way the settings are played out, the way the characters are portrayed, it's all believable. It's all really well done. So for me, it's 100% if I'm judging this just as a screenplay, easily.
Mm-hmm. Wow, very nice. And Matt, your thoughts on the dialogue, the screenplay?
I think there's so much to admire about it. All the characters are really vividly drawn. As soon as you meet them, Levine, Williamson, Roma, any of them, as soon as I meet them, I understand where they're coming from. And I think what Mamet does well is just bringing out that desperation they've all got just to get by. And that's actually quite tragic, because no job, unless it is actual life and death, should feel like life and death, but theirs does. And it's not even a particularly good job that they're doing.
No, crap.
And it's not even about these guys being prosperous. It's just about survival, getting through to the end of the next working week. And that's really tragic. So the writing does have like this pretty like hefty swipe at capitalism, but it doesn't feel hammy when it does it. It doesn't feel like it's over the top.
Yeah.
I think it just does a really good job of suggesting the desperate measures some of these guys are forced to go to just to survive. So it's a pretty damning critique of the world they live in. And the other thing I appreciate is how understandable the writing is in terms of what their job is and what they're doing. Because this could so easily like lose people, like selling property leads. What's going on? But it doesn't. It makes it very clear, very logical. And it also makes it just feel really dramatic. Like the idea of selling property just sounds really boring and probably is in real life. Mm-hmm. But in Mamet's hands, it's absolute gold. So that's great. It goes without saying the dialogue is sensational. But this is where I agree with Westy, and it is actually where I have the issue here, is that it does feel very stagey.
Yeah, it does.
As a film, I feel a bit removed from everything going on. I feel like I should be in
that's what I'm talking about.
And this should be on the screen. You know, it doesn't feel like it's drawn me in like a film does. And it's partly because, although the dialogue is amazing, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of monologues. And at times, I feel like I'm watching like an actor's workshop. It's like, he's a monologue. Now this guy gets a monologue. Now he gets a monologue.
Yeah.
This
like
is his audition
footage,
scene.
Right?
This is Baldwin's audition scene.
Yeah.
I guess, I think that's where you're coming from.
Like exit stage, right? And then somebody comes into the screen, and then somebody leaves the scene, somebody comes in. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what stops me totally buying into the film and the world, because I also think it's if you're talking about players, it's in their nature to tell audiences information rather than show.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have the visual language film does. So, for example, if you think of Taxi Drive, you know that shot in Taxi Drive where Scorsese moves the camera
Yeah.
to look down the hallway,
Yeah.
Yes.
and that tells you everything you need to know about Travis and his loneliness.
Yeah.
You can't get that in a play. You don't get that here. So everything has to be explained. Everything has to be vocalized. Everything has to be put into the actors' mouths.
Okay.
And that's the aspect for me that doesn't translate to a cinematic experience. It feels quite on the nose at times. You know, everyone has to explain who the other person is and why they don't like Dave, for example, instead of letting me find out why they don't like Dave.
And the tragedy is, they could have in this film. There's so much scope for that to happen, to remove some dialogue and put something visual in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is my issue with the script. It is, it's a great idea and it's almost there. It's a truly brilliant script, but it still feels too stagey for me.
Yeah. I can understand what both of you are saying there for sure. But I kind of like that idea. I kind of get a little bit of excitement that it feels as though I'm watching something like live in a theater, which I do quite enjoy. Just with you saying, Matt, about the subject matter, I mean, you can understand why it didn't make money because, I mean, it's a really hard sell if you excuse the pun, a very hard sell.
Yeah.
But I think it's quite incredible that a film thick with dialogue set in maybe 4 locations manages to keep me, personally, maybe not you two guys, but manages to keep me on the edge of my seat, particularly in the second half, which was a surprise this time around because I always come to it for that Baldwin speech and then kind of maybe got lost off a little bit. And I think that's what Mamet does here. He keeps you on the edge of your seat. He's got this uncanny knack of creating these incredible lines of dialogue full of worldwide wisdom and barbed attacks, and it's thick and fast in this.
You're a fucking secretary. Fuck you!
Really quotable lines throughout that jump from the screen. The cast must have been gagging to do it. Looking at these lines, I mean, obviously, look at the cast. Yeah, and they all dropped their fees for the film. Pacino took 1.5 million instead of 6 million. But despite that, the budget was 12.5 million, and this is 1992. Like, they need 4 locations and not much else, no extra work or anything like that. 12.5. Yeah. In comparison, Pulp Fiction released 2 years later, budget of 8 million. Crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
But aside from the dialogue, I think the writing is great when you're made to believe that Arkin stole the leads. And the next day he's acting all nervous like a dead man walking, and then Shelley is full of bluster because he's closed the deal. Great acting from Arkin and Lemmon, but then it's spun on its head when we find out what really happened. Like you said, Westy, you don't expect it, but you kind of do expect it. Yeah. It's not innovative writing, but I think it's seamless, particularly in the hands of this cast.
I think it's the reactions as well from the cast. The reactions to certain lines. We say, Pacino, you closed it this morning? You know, and there's always this little kind of half an eye closed.
Mm-hmm. So I think, like, Mamet, even though he's got this glittering career, I do think this is a standout moment in his career, and as a result, that has an impact on the majority of the cast as well, and they put in standout performances, like I said before. Okay, so as mentioned, the film was adapted from Mamet's stage play, and we've got a question from one of our Patreon supporters regarding that, so I'll hand over to Kyron John for his question. Take her away, Kyron.
Hey, ATRM. This is Kyron from Canada, and my question for the cutting room is, what is your favorite play adapted into a film? Or sorry, film. Love everything you guys do. Thanks for answering my question.
Thanks for the question, Kyron. We're going highbrow on this one, obviously, and a nice little cheeky gag to go with it as well. Very nice.
Film.
Thanks for that. Westy, over to you.
My answer to that would be, well, it's got to be Shakespeare for me, hasn't it? I mean, let's be honest. You know how highbrow I am. But I think...
Julie. Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann film?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Because that's how you make a play cinematic. That's how you make something that people have seen a million times before. Keep the dialogue the same, but improve it on every single level. He just made it brand new. And I remember seeing that, just thinking, wow, I might not, watch it every month or every year even, but when I do see it, I'm just in awe of just the passion behind it and how good that is and how he's been able to update that and make it his own, which is what I wanted from this film. It's been done over and over again, but when Baz Luhrmann touched it, it turned to gold, I thought. I think that's just a really brilliant adaptation, and that's how you make a play cinematic.
Fantastic. Loads of big musical numbers bursting out of Glengarry, Glen Ross. I'd love to see that.
Just more Radiohead, to be fair.
Get the cardigans on.
Tap dancing down the street.
Get rid of the jazz and get the cardigans on. Lovely.
How many big musical numbers were in Romeo and Juliet, though, to be fair? There's none. It's got that contemporary soundtrack. It's got that contemporary look. It's got that, young, hip actors. It just works. I think it's a great film.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it is great. What about you, Matt? Have you got one?
Untouchables.
Yeah, and I'm going pretty much down the... What did you say?
Untouchables. Doesn't even qualify.
What's your favourite black and white cartoon? Untouchables.
Yeah, Untouchable. I'm sure it was a play at some point.
Good bit.
I'm pretty much going down the same street as Westy. For me, would be another Shakespeare adaptation. There's so many to choose from, and it's exactly what Westy says, the best ones show what you can do by taking a famous play and just making it something really different. Favourite version, I would go with Kurosawa and what he did with King Lear, which he turned into Ran from the 80s, which that's just one of the best films ever made, full stop.
It's massive.
It is.
It's
influenced everything from Braveheart, Lord of the Rings. They're all take influence from Ran. So that would be my pick.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's the opposite of Glengarry, Glen Ross, Ran, isn't it?
It's
just
so absolute. It's so big.
It's massive.
It's polar opposite. It's fucking massive.
Yeah.
It's a great film.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, what are you going for? I'm excited.
What's yours going to be, Luke?
Jesus Christ.
Streetcar named Desire.
Do pantomimes count?
Make Jack and the Beanstalk.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
This is unbelievable. You both went for Shakespeare, and Matt, you won up Westy by saying Japanese cinema as well.
Yes, I know, right?
Dicks.
Such highbrow.
I can't believe it is highbrow. A good job I didn't go for fucking Greece. Okay, I realised I hadn't seen too many stage adaptations. And saying Glengarry Glen Ross obviously is a total cop-out. So I'm going to go with a recent film, and it's based on a 2013 play of the same name. And my pick is One Night in Miami, Regina King's 2020 film, a fictionalized version of real events captures in the night of Cassius Clay, Sam Cooke, Jim Brown, Malcolm X. Yes.
You spoke about this highly when you saw it, didn't you? It was your recommend. Yeah,
I did.
remember that. Yeah.
It was. Yeah, it was on a Take 30 podcast that we did. It is a superb film. I was blown away by it when I first saw it. And it takes place largely in one location. And you can tell, it's kind of like the same kind of thing. You can tell it's adapted from a play. Similar tensions bubble over between the four characters at a pivotal moment in their lives. Great performances all around, particularly Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Sam Cooke. And he's got a sweet, sweet voice like Cooke as well. So that's my one.
Velvet Vox.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I lose because it's not Shakespeare, but I like it. Okay.
It's really self-deprecating, that. Why don't you calm down?
He's not so depressed.
I lose because it's not Japanese Shakespeare.
Banging on about Shakespeare? Oh, yeah, Juliet, of course.
You get out your board.
Boom. I love
boom.
It. Okay.
Right.
Great. Okay.
Luke, is your favourite version of Romeo and Juliet the one you see in Hot Fuzz?
Bang!
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the question, Kyron. And that wraps up our conversation on David Mamet's screenplay, Shakespeare, Japanese cinema. Okay?
Yeah.
The cast of GGR is an embarrassment of riches, and we've picked out 3 of our favourites here. I'm going to start us off by talking about Sheldon the Machine Levine, played by Jack Lemmon. Fantastic. Yeah. Just for that name alone.
Machine.
Fuck the machine.
Fuck the machine. What is this, courtesy class?
Great. What strikes me straight off the bat with this performance is it's very difficult to hear this sweet old man curse with the best of them, particularly when it's Jack Lemmon. Audiences have just got so much history with him being the nice guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen him in a role like this either. And I mean, some of the language is outrageous. Yeah, even for us guys.
If I buy it, I don't know if I buy it.
Is it not just because of what you've got, like, emotionally with Jack Lemmon, though?
Maybe, but I think it's the performance as well. I think he's trying to just play to the other guys, like, especially when he's talking to Pacino and he's talking about the deal and the way he sealed it, and like he puts in like the MFs and he's like yeah, and he's trying to adopt his language to be on his level, and it doesn't quite work, and you just say he's kind of past it. And I just find that really sad, but an incredible performance.
It is.
But I don't really buy it. I think he's just doing it for the sake of doing it.
Well, I get the impression that Shelley's effing and jeffing all over the places so he fits in with the cutthroat world that he's operating in. Outside of work, I don't think Shelley talks like this.
No, and even when he's talking about his daughter, he keeps it like hush hush.
He does,
and he's all very like, you won't express that to anyone else.
And he's a terribly tragic figure, Shelley. He's clearly lost the knack for sales. He's an unbearable salesman, really. I wouldn't buy a thing from this guy. Far too over the top.
He's awful.
Hello, this is Sheldon Levine. It's awful.
Hello, this is Sheldon Levine. Please listen closely. I only have a moment or so.
But when he blows into that office the next day, he's cock a hoop about the deal that he's closed. Get the chalk. And he's such a smug bastard, but I suppose it's all an act to distance himself from the break-in, really.
Yeah.
And I think Lemmon is still displaying some outstanding comic timing in this film when Harris is bowling away at him and he walks away and he says, okay. And when he says, fuck the machine, after he finds out he's just closed the deal on Nyborg, it cuts to Shelley raising his eyes at that comment. A really small detail, but just great reactions from a man who knows how to get the best out of the material from a comic point of view.
Yeah.
Hilarious when Roma unloads on Williamson before he goes into the office after Williamson's just killed the deal, and Shelley saunters up behind him and says, "You are a shithead, Williamson."
You are a shithead, Williamson.
That's really funny.
It's so funny.
Where did you learn your trade? Yeah, amazing.
That's all about Lemmon's delivery as well, because on the page it's nowhere near as funny that. It's great.
Yeah.
Just a real surprise from Lemmon, and I guess that's where all the great ones do, the subvert audience expectations. Lemmon goes through a roller coaster of emotions as Shelley. It's incredible to see him go from like smug to pleading to tears and then reluctant acceptance right at the end when he gets hauled into the office, because Roma, even though he's going on about it, really doesn't care less. He's got somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
So I think really effective touch, I think, is when we never privy to the conversations in that office. All we see is the aftermath and their outrage reactions. I like that. We kept at arm's length. So despite the number of performances, from amazing performances in Jack Lemmon's career, this is up there with the best of them for me.
Okay. Agreed.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
Matt, what are you going for? Who are you going for?
Going for Ricky Roma, Pacino, the man himself. It's a very theatrical performance he gives here, and
of course
I think
it is.
this feels to me,
in the 90s.
but it feels to me like this is like the tipping point for Pacino, because before this you've got restrained minimalist Pacino doing Serpico, doing The Godfather, and then after this is when you get Crazy Al, just hoo-hawing all over the place. I mean, it's not a perfect argument. Obviously, before this, he did Scarface, which absolutely is not minimalist in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but that works for the character. He made every character into Scarface after that.
Yeah, that's it. I think this is one way he's really on like the precipice of doing that. But it does work, that kind of bombastic nature of him, because even though fundamentally it's still a crappy job, he's kind of, he's the big man in the little pool, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's kind of king of his little world here, even though it's not a big world to be king of. So he needs to be very bombastic. And I don't think I've ever seen a performance where the actor relishes the dialogue quite as much as Pacino does here. Like, every word that comes out of his mouth, you just feel he's always like caressing it as it comes out. And he's just like constantly finding like interesting spins in the dialogue. Like... Don't make that noise.
It's what he just did.
I did. What was the caressing thing? It sounded fantastic.
Turned into Pacino.
But it's like when he's having the argument with Dave Moss. I've never heard someone say the word bile like Pacino does there. It like explodes out of his mouth like bile.
Ooh. Your pal closes, all that comes out of your mouth is bile.
It's amazing.
It is great.
And as a result, it's a really fascinating performance. Like early on when he's given that whole sales spiel to Jonathan Pryce, I have no idea how that's supposed to entice anyone into buying property. He's going on about cheating on your wife and then some really dodgy stuff. you'd be like, I should like back away from this one.
Yeah,
But
what you
because it's
talking about?
Yeah, exactly. But because it's Pacino and the way he can like unravel that speech, you're just hooked on what he's saying. You go, yeah, keep talking, keep talking.
Yeah, sounds
It's really
great.
bizarre. But for me, I think his character just comes to life in those confrontation scenes in like the last third of the film. Like that first one with Ed Harris. He goes like, "Oh, is that what I did, Dave? I humiliated you. Oh my God, I'm sorry."
Is that what I did, Dave? I humiliated you. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Possibly the most sarcastic I've ever heard any character in any film. Like nothing but contempt for him and his feelings. And then when he's stressing down Kevin Spacey, using language we can't repeat, but even so, I've never heard a C-bomb drop with such eloquence as he does in that scene twice as well. Two of them as well. And he's also responsible for what I think is the funniest part of the film, where he's having the conversation with Lemmon about the crumb cake, and he asks, how was it? Lemmon says, bought from the store. Fuck her.
How was it?
It's from the store.
Fuck up.
Really enraged about crumb cake.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but really, really funny the way he says that. So yeah, as a Pacino performance, it's up there in terms of intensity. It's up there in terms of almost boiling over, but he just about keeps a lid in it. I think it's great stuff.
Yeah, amazing. That line when he gives to Ed Harris's character, "Let me buy you a pack of gum, I'll show you how to chew it."
What a big man you are. Hey, let me buy you a pack of gum. I'll show you how to chew it. Ooh.
Great.
Yeah.
Just great.
Yeah. And then when Jonathan Pryce's character comes back into the office and he's sitting opposite Shelley and he takes the gum out of his mouth, tries to put it under the desk, and it just spills out all over the place.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Very good. What about you, Westy? Who are you going for?
I'm going to go for probably one of the most overlooked performances in the film, which is Ed Harris.
Yes.
I think he's absolutely fantastic because he brings a real human element to it and a real believable element to it. It's not bombastic. It's not over the top. If you get the impression that will be you in this situation. I certainly do anyway. I can't do this job. This is impossible. How do I get out of this quickly? What am I supposed to do? I can't see this week through. And it's just humiliating. But for me, he's the most human character in the whole film. He's the one who's just the most open and the most honest. And that, he has that one-to-one with Pacino, and he's just, all he can say is just screams, "Fuck you." That's all he can do. Fuck you! It is not his world. And I think for an actor like Ed Harris to portray that, especially in the early 90s, was brilliant because that goes completely against type. It goes completely against, what he was really, really good at doing. He was, the man on screen. And when you get Ed Harris in a film, you just think, yeah, it's Ed Harris. Yeah. You know what I mean? He can get shit done.
Yeah.
And this one, he can't. And I think he plays that really well and takes that on board and really delivers. It gives a grounding to the whole story. And I think if he wasn't in there giving it this kind of human element, everyone else would just seem over the top and loose and just all over the place. But I do feel like Ed Harris as a character and a performance ties it all together.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you guaranteed always at least a 7, maybe an 8 from Harris on every film that he's in.
Every single film.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
So 3 powerhouse performances there. We should also highlight the other cast members as well, Alan Arkin and Jonathan Pryce, etc., who all put in memorable turns.
Absolutely.
And that's all for part 2. We have one final video for you. Part 3, where we'll talk about our highlights from Glengarry, Glen Ross, and finally, we'll be rating the film.